you for joining us today on Bible Boot Camp. No, I'm sorry, BBC Unplugged. Here we go again. We start this again. BBC Unplugged. We are back again every first and third.
Yes, Monday.
Every first and third Mondays. And today, we're just excited about meeting with you and you meeting with us, talking about a subject that we talked about some time before. And so we're going to ask you at this time that if you will take some time out and share this link with someone, share this program with someone, share this show with someone, because tonight we're going to be talking about something that we talked about before, but we're going to go get a little dirty, a little bit clean dirty with it. And so at
sanctified dirty.
Sanctified dirty. We're going to get sanctified dirty with it. So at this time, we want to just ask anyone who's on right now that you'll share this link with someone. Bible Boot Camp Unplugged. What are we? Praise Vision.
PraiseVision.com/bootcamp.
/bootcamp. Okay? PraiseVision.com/bootcamp.
Bootcamp.
And so we're going to begin, and we are going to just ask God to be with us as we talk a little bit about what's the subject tonight?
Tonight is sexually satisfied or thirsty. We're revisiting that. We're revisiting that because of a article that came out in the Visitor magazine that was based off of our last show about being sexually satisfied or thirsty. But since I didn't introduce myself, what's up, it's LaLa?
Yeah.
Because you know, the host just started talking. So
it's not that. It's that I gotta pray first. And then,
but then you bring it over here like as if though.
Oh,
okay.
right.
So go ahead, pray. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Hey, let's bow our heads together as we invite God's presence. Father, again, we come before you, thanking you for all that you've done. We thank you for life and for strength and this opportunity of being able to talk a little bit and to just express the subject that you have created. And so in this, we're asking that your Holy Spirit will be with us today. And as people are coming on, may we be edified, yet others be edified also. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And so again, I want to welcome everyone to BBC Unplugged. And tonight our subject is
sexually satisfied or thirsty. But before we get into the subject, though, we've been doing this for a year.
A whole year.
This month, September, marks a year for BBC Unplugged.
That's right.
So we got to kind of celebrate that a little bit because we've had a good year, I think.
I would say we should leave after and get some sushi.
Oh, sushi. You know, I'm good for that.
I'm just saying.
I'm down for the sushi.
So where we want to begin is that the Visitor magazine.
Yes.
The Visitor magazine reference our show concerning being sexually satisfied or thirsty. And
I think that's when we had in Ollie and Denise Marcel of Marriage is Our Ministry.
Right.
They brought in that topic and they talked about being sexually satisfied and thirsty and just some of the issues that married couples face in the sexual department and how the church isn't appropriately addressing that. And so the Visitor magazine really dug deeper into it. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read it, but the Visitor magazine really opened it up. And so we're here to talk about it again because this month's issue of Visitor magazine actually talks about this very topic.
There we go. And so if you just open up a little bit and talk to us about what the magazine talked about.
Yeah, so of course I have my notes here and you're seeing the article. If you want to, I forgot what the link is, but if you Google Visitor magazine and pull up the September article, then you'll be able to see it. But the title of the article itself is When It Comes to Talking About Sex, Should the Church Lead the Conversation?
Wow.
And I think that's an awesome question because a lot of times, well, most of the times, we're not talking about it. The church is not talking about it.
That's true.
And this goes back to a lot of what people are saying in recent months that, you know, the church is not touching subjects that are relevant. And so that makes the relevance of the church now being questioned. So that's the discussion tonight. But what they were essentially talking about was the taboo that is surrounding the discussion having to do with sex, you know, that we being the church, we should really start that discussion because what's happening is the world is essentially fashioning what this discussion should be.
That's true.
And of course, as the world fashions it, it's not being done so from a biblical standard.
There we go. So the question is, do we have a role? Does the church play a role in broaching the subject of sexual activity, whether it be with someone who's single or someone who's married? You know, it's a real subject. If the world deals with it, if the world is dealing with it, if the world is combating it, if the world is talking about it, shouldn't something like this begin at the church? Even and respect to age level. Respect to age level. We're not talking about 5-year-olds. We're not talking about 8-year-olds.
Right.
We're really talking about the level where it really does matter.
Right.
And so does the church play a role? For those who are in our chat room right now, I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to pose the question, does the church, any church, does the church or should the church play a role in broaching the subject of sexual activity to individuals in the church? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Right. And while you guys are writing that down, I want to just remind you guys that you can dial in if you'd like to speak with us. The number is 347-989-8128. Again, the number is 347-989-8128. If you want to speak with us, press 1. And then we'll know that here in studio that you want to talk. Or if you just want to listen, you can hang out there, chill as long as you want, and listen to us if you can't get onto Praise Vision. Is Ustream up tonight?
Ustream is up tonight.
Okay, or Ustream if you want to get up on Ustream as well, or BBC Unplugged Ustream channel. So 347-989-8128 again. So let's see what the chat room is saying.
Okay. Wow, Darius.
No, okay. Darius said, because the church is wasting its time talking about salvation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the other answers are yes. What was the question again? What did you ask?
Well, should the church
lead the conversation?
Lead the conversation. Should they play a role in talking about this? In fact, let's look at the article. What the article basically says: when it comes to talking about sex, should the church lead the conversation? Because if we're not leading it,
who is?
Who is leading?
Who is? And then what are you saying as you lead it? I think that's what the article was talking about. You know,
that's it.
That and I think it was a quote from you where he said that sex is a trusted gift that God gives us.
Yes.
And he expects us to be responsible. Was that an actual quote from you?
It was an actual quote
because
it sounds good, doesn't it?
It sounds good. I just want to make sure that that's because the article said that it came from you. So and it's perfect. It's perfect. But and that he expects us to be responsible with it. And so that with that responsibility, I think the guidelines for that in order for us to be responsible comes from the Bible.
Okay.
And it is quite possible that the world is not giving you the standards of the Bible when it comes to sex. And we can see that in the media that surrounds us, TV, I mean, radio, everything that is surrounding us, the world makes their own story.
Hey, Natasha says something in the chat room. She says, yes, first of all, yes. Joseph Moore says yes. But Natasha says, but also because it is blessed by God, he said to be fruitful and multiply. And the only way you can be fruitful and multiply is
by having sex.
By having sex,
Absolutely.
Which is true. Or what about for people like us? We're finished with production. We're just in business now. We're children.
Yes.
You know? So yes, we're just being fruitful, but we're not multiplying.
Right. Amen. Amen. No multiplication over here.
Good. In light of that, are there any other quotes from the magazine that we can use at this time, just to give an aspect of what they're speaking about concerning sexual activities or our roles?
Right. So there's a Dr. Holbrook, I believe is how you pronounce, Celeste Holbrook, out of the Worthington Church in Ohio's conference.
Okay.
Worthington SDA Church, I think, who said that troubles arise when expectations aren't met or even clearly communicated when it comes to marriage, you know, because the question came up, and I think in the last show as well, if we are supposed to wait until after we are married, then how do we know that we will be satisfied when we get there?
So there have to be some kind of conversation happening.
And expectations have to be clearly communicated.
Right, on the level of dating.
Right.
Or exclusively dating.
Courtship.
Courtship. A conversation that can actually take place without the physical happening.
Right. And if I do say so myself, I think in premarital counseling, that needs to be like, well, you know how they talk about finances?
Sure.
You guys talk about finances and stuff like that in premarital counseling and whatnot. I think that, you know, just like how they put, because they say a lot of marriages end because of financial issues, a lot of marriages end too because of sexual issues.
Absolutely.
And so I think a lot of focus, or it needs to have maybe more focus, needs to be placed on the sexual conversation. Like, what do you expect? What do you think you like? What turns you on? What turns you off? You know.
Well, another question is coming in that how far is too far? How far is too far? We're looking at one of the questions. How far is too far
when you're engaged?
When you're speaking about being engaged? if you're engaged with someone, how far is too far? And I mean, I can give my answer that I use whenever I'm in doing counseling with someone.
What's the answer?
What's the answer? I think that, first of all, it's a discussion that needs to happen between the two people.
Mm-hmm.
That how far is too far, and to be truthful about your limits. In other
Right.
words, if petting is too much,
Mm-hmm.
then you should not go as far as petting,
Right.
where it will cause you to go to the next level. Okay,
Right.
I mean, but a counselor can't come in and say, okay, then you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that.
Right.
But the conversation should take place while you're engaged. Listen, if we kiss, if we open mouth kiss, if we touch each other, if we pet each other, if I touch you above the waist, can it stay that way? Can it stay there and still glorify God?
Right.
You see, and some people probably feel like, well, if you're kissing, if you're petting, if you're doing that much, that you're not glorifying God. Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, then what do you gauge and how do you gauge how far is too far? Then when you get married, you also kind of figure, well, I don't even want to go that far in marriage. Dialogue must take place. Boundaries must take place.
Right.
Whatever you believe that boundary may be in
Right.
your relationship.
But it has to be an open, honest discussion.
It has to be.
Right.
It has to be.
Right. Another point brought out by the article was a lot of us grew up in households where they did not discuss sex at all.
Come on. I mean, that's a fact.
Or yeah. And if it was discussed, it was a one-time discussion. This is what's happening. This is what's not going to happen. And that's it. It wasn't an ongoing, now that as you progress through, discussion. And so the article touched on raising children that have a healthy sexual outlook. You know, to make sure that they aren't afraid of it. Number one, they realize that it is a blessing from God.
Right.
Number two, within its appropriate place.
Setting.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so all these things need to be taught, because if we're not teaching it, if the church isn't teaching it, if the parents aren't teaching it, then the world is teaching it.
Then the world is going to teach it.
And the world is going to tell you, go for you. Just whatever,
I'm feeling something that Darius is saying. And a lot of times, I'm going to say this, I have Darius as one of my friends on my Facebook page, and he's very insightful. It may seem like he pushes the limit on things. Okay? I'll say that.
That's good.
And Darius always seems like he pushes the limit on things, but when you hear where he's coming from, you will find that the church is not there just to save people, salvific or salvation-wise.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Christ does that work. But what is the work of the church? What is the main work of the church? It's to be Christ here on earth. Okay? Mary had a sexual problem. Come on, let's be real. Mary had a sexual problem. And Jesus dealt with Mary's sexual problem to help her along the way. You see where I'm coming from? And I think that one of the mistakes that we've made is that we're so stuck on salvation, which comes by accepting Christ, that we forget that people are hungry. We forget that people have issues. We forget that there are other issues. And then we play the role of just saving instead of how do we save on an everyday basis. Okay? So I'm feeling what Darius is saying. Some people may not agree with what I'm saying or how I put it out there. But Darius, if I'm wrong, you can call in. If I'm misrepresenting you, you can call in, and definitely we can get the ball rolling on, definitely rolling on that.
Yeah, because he's saying in the chat room, he said people in Bible times did not have to deal with these issues.
Oh, well. Maybe I may not agree with that.
Well, Darius, we may need you to call in, because I'm particularly interested in your angle to see where you're going with it. So if you are able to, 347-989-8128 is our number. And just call in and give a little more on what you're putting in the chat room, because I'm very interested in where you're coming from and your perspective on it. So 347-989-8128. Again, I see some callers on and you guys may be just listening. But if you want to talk with us, you can go ahead and press 1, and then it will give us an indicator here in the studio that you want to talk. So 347-989-8128.
Yeah. Is there a biblical mindset behind the whole sexual outlook on life? I think that a lot of young people in our church today, especially the ages of 40 and below, who grew up in the church, sex is a taboo. It's not something that's exciting. It's not something that we look at as if to say it is a treasure from God. We look at it, and I think the church has mishandled sexual activities to such a degree that people in our age, we now mishandle it. You see where I'm coming from? We mishandle it to a great degree. And so if we can, the only way to save our generation right now, This is what I believe. The only way to save our generation is to be open with our generation and help them to recognize that that they need clear answers from the Word and examples from the Word.
And not only that, but we need to learn to approach these topics in confidence. You know, sometimes we could be a little wishy-washy, and we don't want to get the hard questions about it. And it's okay to say, I don't know, let's study together and find out. You know, but be willing to have the hard discussions and present it in a way that, you know what, I'm confident that this is where we need to be and that God will be pleased with it.
Right.
I see we have two callers. One 646 area code. You are last 47767. You are currently on BBC Unplugged with Pastor Paul and LaLa. Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, Pastor? Is Mr. Roy speaking.
Say your name again. Who's this?
Roy Dunlap.
Hey, what's up, Roy? Good to hear from you.
Good. I was listening to your conversation, man, and actually, you said you hit it on the head, man. Like the second.
Roy,
you started.
Roy, you're going in and out. You're going in and out, Roy.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like anything that you do, you abuse it, and it's not taught, you know, saying that is a gift from God, you're going to abuse it. And the devil's it knows this already. So, for example, I grew up in a neighborhood where you're taught at a young age to conquer as many women as you can.
Right.
But as you got older and you realize that was the wrong thing to do, then you realize how abusive you were. You know what I mean? So you start thinking about your kids and teaching your kids different. The guys who I grew up, they didn't have to go through stuff like this, and they understand, like, man, I was very abusive, and they had 3 or 4 kids from different women and this and that, and they realized that they wasn't taught the right way.
Right. And you say that, Roy, really helps me to remember. And what I remember growing up with my uncles, are you with me? It's like if you don't conquer, you're not a man.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no godliness into it. Or you go to college. We went to college together, and when you go to college, you're not a man unless you're conquering women. And then we find out that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, good. I'm listening.
Right, and so for you to say that in the neighborhood, we're taught that as black men, or I don't know about men in general, but I know as black men, we're taught that if you do not conquer, you're not a man. You're not a man unless you have sex first. It's not, in fact, it's sex before a job. Can you believe that? It's sex before family, so to speak, or it's sex before, your education. And that's what has hurt us along the way, which if we had a biblical mandate behind it, it will reverse it and put the priorities where it needs to be.
And just remember, it's like, saying the world's teaching everybody about sex, so why can't you teach us? Wait till you get married. So the world is out there throwing everything on TV, commercials, saying people in the streets. So if we're not going to teach our kids about sex, somebody else will.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
Man, thank you so much. And one thing I'm going to always remember in this, then things get different when you have children.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially when you got a little girl, it just changes.
That's right.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right, we have our next.
No problem.
Thanks, Roy. We have our next caller, area code 937. Area code 937. Are you here?
Hi, Patrick. Hi, LaLa.
Hello.
Hey.
I think this is
Darius.
Hey, here we go.
Thank you for calling.
Hey, Darius, man, you gotta help us with that accent, man.
You don't have to help me. I'm fine. Thank you, Darius.
Oh, I got it. Darius, I'm so glad, first of all, that we were able to represent you correctly. And I see exactly where you're going. But please, add your comment in.
Right, for those who aren't in the chat room.
Right.
But Now, the problem, because here's what happened. We have a confusion between sex within marriage and sex outside of marriage.
Okay.
I think the one that causes most problems is sex outside of marriage.
Right.
Now, I see it differently.
Okay.
Because I think biblically, as far as the Bible is concerned, marriage occurs when sex happens.
It's true. That's biblical.
I don't believe in the idea of premarital sex. It doesn't exist. It never existed.
Okay.
You had sex, you got married. Now, I know that that's rough for some people, but those are the facts. And the reason why I emphasize the thing about not talking about salvation, we are dealing with sex is something that we did with vegetarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of treating vegetarianism as a health matter, we made it a matter of faith.
Mm.
And so we advise people to be vegetarians, not because it was healthy, but because that's what will get them to heaven.
Wow.
That is wrong. There is something with sex. Don't tell people don't have sex because it's a sin.
Right.
You don't engage in sex really because it's unhealthy. Because the man who lives his life trying to conquer women, when he gets married, he's going to end up trying to conquer his wife.
Mm. 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 Mm.
And the moment you do that, you have begun to sow the seed of destruction in your marriage. And so it's not a matter of salvation or not. It's a matter of being unhealthy. The same happens also. Young men pressure the young girls to have sex, and the girl keeps saying no because she's taught to say no. Then they get married, and she keeps on saying no.
Man. Mm.
We should emphasize the unhealthiness of it, rather than telling people, if you do it, which is what a couple of people in the church are saying, all they heard was, if you do it, you go to hell.
I got you. I'm wondering, Darius, if there are others that agree with what you're saying, but I will say this much. According to the biblical mandate, what we've read in the Old Testament, and I'm sure it pulled over into the New Testament, that once you have sex with someone, you're married to that person. I mean, that was basically it. But it is, to a great degree, unhealthy to do that, not only physically, especially in the times we're living in, but also it becomes unhealthy to the next relationship, or the relationship that is supposed to be the forever relationship. And I think that that is so pointedly made that many of us as Christians make the mistake of being guilty. We make the mistakes of being afraid of this thing because it's a biblical thing that they throw at us, much less them saying, if you follow these mandates from the Word, not the sin issue, but from a healthy standpoint of what God is, what God's ideal is for His people, it'll come across better. It would definitely come across better. Wow! Thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Anything, Andy, on that?
No, that was new for me. That was new for me. But it made my mind think now on from a woman's standpoint, from a female standpoint, what a woman has to give up in order to be vulnerable enough to open herself up to that type of relationship, a sexual relationship. I mean, if you did that with multiple people, you leaving bits of yourself all over the place. You know what I mean? And so the mental health part of it, could be a challenge.
Right.
It would be a challenge.
Right. Look at what guest 52 is saying. Look what guest. Thanks again, Darius, for your comments. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
Okay. When we look at this, look at guest 52. Guest 52 is saying it is a sin. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And I think sex mishandled outside of the Word of God is a sin.
It's a sin, right?
Okay. But what this person in guest 52 is also saying is, but people were having, no, let's go back up. I'm sorry, they just commented again. That other aspect should be included, which Darius is saying.
Right.
That it's mental, right? What was the other one you said? It was.
I said the mental health part of it.
Right.
And they talked about the emotional part of it because you are giving of yourself to a person,
right?
You know, in the very act of it,
right.
And so done so irresponsibly could have serious repercussions on you, you know, and so I think that is still very much a part of God's plan, and when He says don't do it,
right?
You know,
there's a, and I hate to say this about God, right? But there's a method to His madness.
Right, exactly. There is a method to
His madness.
There is a method to His madness. But there was a comment that was made in the chat room by Larwin, by So Heroic. He says, but are we complicating an uncomplicated topic? The Bible says sex is for marriage, and if you are burning, marry. Seems simple enough. Now, is it really that simple, though?
Well, let's look at what the text says, okay? Let's look at what the text
says. Please break that, because I keep hearing that.
Well, it says in 1 Corinthians 7, now concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me. In fact, wrote unto me. It is good for a man not to touch a woman. Okay? All right. Remember now, he's talking to the people in Corinth. He's not talking to everybody.
Right.
But how does it play a part for us now? Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Are you with me so far? I hope everybody's with us. In verse 3 it says, let the husband render unto his wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. Now, y'all, this is where the rubber meets the road for those who are married and are dealing with certain issues inside of marriage. Verse 4, the wife hath not power over her own body. All right, watch it now. We're going to get a call in from your husband now. But the husband, okay? And likewise, also the husband hath not power over his own body, but the wife. I love this text simply because, and we're getting somewhere based on what Lauren was saying.
Right.
Okay? What we're getting at is what is the biblical mandate?
Right.
What is Paul teaching us at this point? It says in verse 5, what? Defraud ye not what? One the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your own,
incontinency.
Thank you so much. When we look at this, right, it says that the only time you really, listen, this is biblical now, the only time you really should be apart from your wife or from your husband is for a religious mindset. For prayer and fasting. Okay? Other than that, you should always give your due benevolence to the one that God gave you, the one that God gave to you.
Right.
Let's look at that text again. If you really right now, if you will just read 6.
But I speak this by permission and not of commandment.
Wow, that's deep. But we're going to understand.
By permission. Okay, yeah, okay.
Verse 7, go in verse 7.
For I would that all men were even as I myself.
Okay, we're talking about Paul now. Okay, go ahead.
But every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that.
Right, so what he's also saying in verse 7 is that the gift that he has, right, is the gift of singleness. In other words, he doesn't need to have sex to keep moving forward. You understand where I'm coming from? Or to carry on in his life and what have you. But he then goes to give some advice in verse 8. It says, go ahead.
I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain... let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn.
It's better to marry than to burn. So what is Lauren basically saying at this point? I mean, think about it. Well, let's see what the Bible is saying at this point. The Bible is basically telling us that if you're not married and you can't contain, it's best to be married. All right? Because it's better to be married than to burn. And folks, that burn does not mean hell. It does not mean hell. And we're going to talk about what it really means after that. But it does not mean hell.
But I think it also points out the importance of two things.
Okay, go ahead.
It points out the importance of sex within marriage and just within marriage. And it points out the importance of sex.
There's an importance of
sex. There's an importance of sex,
and
there is a weakness around it.
Of course there is.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But just for the Bible to say alone that it is best you marry, and create this covenant, this lifelong commitment,
Right.
than to go against God. Just go ahead and marry.
Okay. Natasha's making a point here. She said, what if you're in a relationship? All right, you're in a relationship with someone, but you're not ready for married yet. You're not
Marriage
ready
yet.
for marriage yet. Okay. Can a couple commit to celibacy? Should that couple commit to celibacy?
Right.
My thing is, if you can't commit to celibacy, then get married.
And the thing is, okay, so this other question is a long one. So I just saw the 331, guess 331, and it brings us back to how can the church now support
Here we go.
these
Here
issues.
We go. I just bring us back. Go ahead.
Right. So it says, so the next question is, what are we doing to reduce and or assist our members who already had premarital sex?
Right.
I mean, how does the church now really deal with the issue of individuals who are having this issue without judging them? Because the article talks about being able to freely speak to your church about, I'm having this issue,
right?
Or I am engaging in this without being judged, without being looked a certain way. I have sat in not at RPC. I have sat in. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Right, I have sat in like prayer meetings at churches where members have come up and they have said, listen, I have a pornography issue.
Right.
And I would need you guys to pray for me. I have this issue. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And it's almost like as if they're cast away. Like, you got an issue. As opposed to taking the position of, okay, let's rally around this person. Let's support them.
Right.
And let's help them because maybe, hey, I had that issue too and I got out.
Right.
And
I made it through.
Right. So the question for the evening is, what can the church do, and how do we start the discussion in actually supporting this issue or supporting the struggle?
All right. And if you have some comments concerning that, please hit us in the chat room. Okay, or Landy, give me
or 347-989-8128. 347-989-8128. If you want to speak with us, press 1 and we'll put you on.
Now remember the question. The question is, what should the church be doing, or how could the church aid? How could the church help? Now remember, we're talking about roles of the church. Let's not forget what that article said. The article was asking the question, when it comes to talking about sex, should the church lead the conversation? I know that we are agreeing. Am I right, LaLa?
Yes.
We are agreeing that the church should lead the conversation.
Right.
Not only in the church itself, but the church should lead that conversation in the community also.
Exactly.
Okay? So in light of that, how can the church now deal with the individuals who have already had sex, or they're not virgins anymore, they're not married, but want to feel whole, or not even feel better, even into some aspects feel better about themselves as they move on to marriage, or as they move on to just living their life as a Christian?
I think someone in the chat room said, I saw Ronnie Rochester said,
Yes.
The church has to be honest.
Yes.
The church has to be real. Number one, that there is an issue, there is a problem. And that the members have a need. So I think that's the first step. People are in the chat room saying sex is taboo in the church.
Well, Davina is saying sex is taboo, right? She says no one is going to be honest concerning premarital sex.
Right.
Okay. I mean, people will admit to
now,
alcohol and drug addiction, but not that.
Now, why won't people be honest? Is it because of the response that they get?
I think it's the fact that we're teaching that that's the greatest shame in the world. You find someone who's an alcoholic in church, right? And no one is going to disfellowship them.
That's right.
Okay? You find someone who has a smoking problem, they're not going to be disfellowship. Someone is gossiping, they're not going to be disfellowship. But as soon as you hear of someone who's having a sexual issue, whether the issue be whether they're gay, whether they're pregnant, whether they've been caught out there, or whether someone gossiped about their activities a year ago or a month ago or whatever, it seems to be like the biggest shame in the world.
Right.
And I don't look at that as the biggest shame.
Right.
I think one of the greatest shame is someone who can't keep their mouth shut. I think that's shameful.
I think the greatest shame is people who pretend like they don't have an issue, but they do.
Wow, that's deep.
Because that will cover all the other issues.
It sure would.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's part of what the church's issue is.
Definitely.
We are ignoring an issue.
We're ignoring we're ignoring the fact that we have that issue.
Right.
I believe, I'm just coming up with a number. It's not statistically correct, but I believe that more individuals have more issues with intimacy, sexual issues, and will not admit it, maybe because they've reached a certain point in their lives concerning marriage, or maybe they've reached an age where their bodies are not functioning in that manner anymore. Are you with me? I mean, I'll tell you what my grandmother always says. My grandmother, she'll be clear with it, there may be smoke. There may be smoke in the chimney, but there's fire. Something she always says, don't let the gray hairs fool you.
Fool you. Don't let it fool you.
And she's 90, she's going to be 94.
And now.
She says she want a boyfriend, it still works. So in light of that, here's one of the questions also, because I see some of us coming up with some of the some answers of how can the church take care of it. I have some ways, but I want to hear from you also. And then the subject of control. How about the subject of control? Then there are others who cannot find that level of control, and you're dating someone, or you're not dating someone, you're not married. Your body is working. You have passion. Someone in here said, what about the passion? All this passion that I have inside, how did I let that go? Now, do you move to Bible study, or do you move to prayer, or do you move to Bible study, prayer, and, you ready? Masturbation? Or do you deal with pornography?
Right.
Well, I mean, how do you deal with these issues now that you say, God, you don't want me to do this? Then what do you have outside of going to socials?
Right, right.
What happens when you're home alone?
You're exactly right.
Okay, so these are some of the issues that we're dealing with. Oh, Ronnie Rochester said personal ministries, prison ministries. Oh, right. Yeah, right. I don't know if how that really helps. Is that a caller again for 646, or is that still Roy?
That's still Roy. I'm not sure if he wants to talk again, but I think we touched on something that's, because a lot of people talk about the various ministries that can assist.
Yes.
But I mean, we can identify ministries. We really can identify ministries, but I think the entire in the church needs to change.
It must change.
It needs to change.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Really quickly. If the aspect in the church, if that aspect in the church needs to change, what is the first thing that we need to do? What is the first thing that we need to do? Okay. The first thing. In your mindset, you don't have to be right.
Right. So I'm trying to think of the root of the problem. So people don't share because they feel like they're being judged. Right?
Yes.
That they're around the table. People looking at them like, that's your issue. So we have to remove that spirit of judgment. And what comes with that is, I saw a quote, and I actually posted it on Facebook the other day, where you build compassion for another being when you put yourself on the same level as them, and you don't put yourself in an elevated state. Because when you're in that elevated state, you're looking down at them and their issue, as opposed to when you're eye to eye with them and you can relate to them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that within the church, we need to build compassion. We need to build humility. Because with humility comes that realness, like, I have that problem too.
Yes. And as Guest 52 just said, mandate, not punish.
Transparent, right? Exactly.
Transparency.
If I come, exactly. I don't know how many stories I've heard of people coming to the church and say, I have this issue, and then they're punished.
They're punished
for it. So why am I going to come?
I got one for you. There's a young lady in our church right now who talked about her sexuality. Okay, she's married, and her mindset is that now all the married women don't want her around her husband.
Oh wow.
Okay.
What did you?
I'm just saying. What I'm saying is that that's another way of individuals that cannot be open. And when this person was open, she was open with married women. She's married herself.
Wow.
Okay. And so it's not like she expressed it to husbands.
Right.
She expressed it to other women. And all of a sudden she became judged. And we're talking about the same age group. And not even talking about older people. Not even talking about another generation.
Right.
We're just talking about the fact that we cannot create a safe space. But I say, on top of what you just said, the first thing we need to do, or the second thing, or one of the things we need to do, is to create, as Sister Wallace said, is to create a safe space.
Yes. And with a safe space comes with humble individuals.
Wow.
That safe space has individuals in there who see you eye to eye, and I have this issue. They're compassionate. They're humble. I mean, that's a safe place for people.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And I think that may be where we start as a church, because honestly, if we can't even master this for our own congregation, there is no way we're touching the community with this, because the community sees right through us.
Yes.
And they're like, you know what? They're not ready. They're fake about it.
Absolutely.
They're not having real conversations.
And we have to have real conversations. What did Darius just made a comment? I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but it's true. And he said confession is good for the soul,
but bad for the reputation.
It's good for the soul, but it's bad for the reputation. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put it out there, because what we're talking about is being sexually satisfied. Now, being sexually satisfied, first of all, it should not fall in line with someone who's not married.
Right.
But what should fall in line with someone who is married, or who's not married and married, is, are we living our lives now? Are we setting ourselves up not to be sexually satisfied? You understand where I'm coming from?
Okay.
Are we setting ourselves up not to be sexually satisfied when we don't have the conversation that we're supposed to have? When we don't have older people, like I give you, for instance, in our church, we have Sister Ballard, right? In our church we have, and boy, we miss him so much, but Brother Elder MacGyver, you know, we're talking about couples such as the Keys, okay, Sister Walton. We're talking about couples who are seniors, so to speak,
right?
Okay, who can talk to us about some of this stuff. One of the issues that we face is that so many older folks will not talk about it, won't speak about it, and so we're afraid that we're going to have a bad reputation afterwards. Here's one of the questions. If we do not have that open conversation, what's going to happen to the next generation who's getting married along the way? Where it's
a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle.
There you go.
It will continue, and they will be dealing with it with their children as well. I just saw Abby made a comment in the chat room. Ronnie made a comment in the chat room saying, "What is a reputation in church?" That shouldn't even be the premise, and that's true, because you know what? Everybody got a reputation at church, though. Right. And that's the same thing I was talking about when you act like as if though you have nothing going on. Right. Everything is okay with you, but then the next person, you're watching them a little cross-eyed because they have communicated something that maybe you didn't communicate.
Right, right.
You know, she's absolutely right. There is no such thing as reputation at church.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You know, we look at the guy, the leper in the Bible, Naaman the leper. Okay, when it was written about when it was written about Naaman, when the story was written about Naaman, Naaman was not a leper at the time. He got over leprosy, but he's still known as Naaman the leper. Right. You know. Right. Mary, who's been forgiven by God over and over and over again. We understand 7 times in that sense. 7 demons were loosed from her. You know, still while she's at the table and she's, while Jesus is at the table and she's pouring, what is it called again, out of an alabaster box for him, so to speak. They're still looking at her like, look at this whore, so to speak.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got to reach a place in our lives, in our church lives, where this thing called someone having a reputation, that's got to be clean and done with.
Right.
I mean, we have to promote restored lives. We have to promote this, because when a person becomes married, then they watch this now. I just want to show this. We want to look like this. We don't want to look like this. The way that's going to help is if we open up for conversation.
Have real conversations.
We're real about it.
Right.
We talk about the fact that there are people who have made it through masturbation, who have made it through pornography, who's made it through, I would say, maybe premarital sex, who made it through extracurricular activities in your
Right.
marriage. There are
Right.
people who have made it through that. And the fact of the matter is we won't know about it because no one testifies.
No one testifies
Everyone's
to it.
afraid to talk about it. Or maybe we don't, maybe what the church should do is form that forum. To form that forum so that people will be able to talk about it.
But in order to form that forum,
Yeah.
you still need to go back to that safe space because that forum has to be safe.
It does. It's
And
true.
people will not share. Even if you form a forum, they will not share if it is not safe. And if there are people there, number one, who will judge you or who just there looking business. You know? And so again, we go back to the root of, being compassionate,
Yes.
being humble, and really understanding too that we all have reputations. We're all sinners. We say it every Sabbath. We're all sinners saved by grace. We say it every Sabbath, but we don't actually know what that means because even though I say we're all sinners saved by grace, and then I look at you and I'm like, you dealing with something, that's something that needs to be remedied.
It is. It's scary, but it doesn't start with the pastor.
No, actually, and the article talks about that. Oh, the article talks about that. Okay. So they let me pull it up. They spoke to Claudio Consuegra, Family Ministries for the NAD.
Right.
And he said
we should get him at our church. He and his wife does a very awesome job talking about this subject.
Yeah. So he said that the role of the church is to provide training and resources for the parents. Or he was talking about how we raise our kids and stuff like that when it comes to these types of topics. But he also says, don't expect your pastor to be everything to everyone. You can be the pastor's helper in this area of ministry. It's not just up to the pastors. Right. To go out and talk this. We have family life departments.
Yes.
Even the ministries that don't necessarily deal with relationships. All ministries in the church, in my estimation, they are based on relationships.
Hey.
So
okay, go ahead.
Okay?
Okay.
So it is not necessarily from the pastor. Right. I mean, the pastor just provides the template for us to work from.
Absolutely. And here's another thing. What's so important is that the pastor is probably not even equipped.
Right.
The pastor's probably not even equipped to handle that. I know that there are certain things that I'm not equipped to handle. I know for myself, for me right now, okay, but you have other great pastors in this area like Pastor Defoe in this area, Pastor Trusty in this area, who's able to handle certain situations. Even Pastor Mitchell, because, I'm just giving in this area. In the New York area, you got Pastor Sinclair in that area, in the New York area and other places that are equipped to handle some of these. We as pastors on our level, we handle premarital counseling. And premarital counseling is not you getting engaged, right, okay, and then saying, I want a counselor. It's you getting a counselor before you engage, and then you're hitting a counselor again, okay? So a lot of times, people in the pews, there it goes. That's why I'm the pulpit and
I'm the pew.
There it goes. So that must understand that we're not equipped, and there are individuals in the congregation to handle situations like that.
Right.
We need to tap into those individuals.
Right.
We must do, not only for the church, but also
for the community.
For the community.
Because
for sure,
we're definitely doing it a service, not just to the church, to the congregation, but to the community as well.
Absolutely. Natasha also mentioned someone else in our area, Chaplain Anderson,
right,
who's also in the DMV area, and we have to provide. We must provide these. We call it outlets. What was it called?
Mm-hmm.
These
an outlet.
Yeah, we have to provide
outlet.
that.
Yeah,
definitely, for sure. I see Oliver Marcel is on.
Yeah, he's the one that started this whole topic,
Yes, He's a mess.
I had a good time with that. If you guys are interested in seeing the previous Sexually Satisfied, because I think we did it in 2 parts as well. We had 2 shows for it. You can go to our YouTube channel, BBC Unplugged, and you can see all previous shows. And the Sexually Satisfied and Thirsty, both shows are there on the YouTube channel as well.
Definitely. So in light of this, we want to just take some time out, just for a moment, to just to speak a little bit about our sponsors, and then we want to come back to you again as we deal with the subject
of Sexually Satisfied and Thirsty Revisited.
Okay. Right now we have a also thank Praise Vision for powering us up each day. We really appreciate what they're doing over there, providing not only streaming but programs for those who may not be able to make it to church, but those who just want to go back and hear other services. And then we also want to highlight Water for the Thirsty. The word, simply refreshing. Go to waterforthethirsty.com, and as you go to waterforthethirsty.com, you can download the PDF file and follow not only with Restoration Praise Center, but also with other churches and other individuals around the world right now to follow the Bible reading plan. And at the end of this Bible reading plan, you will surely, truly get an understanding of Christ's character. And if you are enjoying this program, not only tell someone else about it, but go to our page.
BBC Unplugged on Facebook and like us.
Like us. Please like us, okay? Go to our page and like us. And for those who have been with us each morning, 5 o'clock each morning, we invite each one of you to be with us on Praise Vision. On Praise Vision, that is Bible Boot Camp.
The original series.
The original series. That's at 5 a.m. For those who have not joined us already, we're doing the whole month of September, and we're doing 5 o'clock in the morning. We want each person to move to higher ground. So, bright Praise Vision, Water for the Thirsty, and please do not forget BBC Unplugged. Okay. I want to go back to our topic again that we're dealing with, a topic that simply talks about sexually satisfied or
thirsty.
Thirsty. Okay.
You know, Darius just brought up. He said there's an elephant in the room that we're not really addressing, and that would be the elephant of sexual abuse and rape.
Wow.
And how, and I'm taking this a little further.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people suffer silently in church, yes, but that also impacts their ability to have a healthy sexual life.
True.
So they go into relationships, and then that impacts their ability to, you know, to do what they're supposed to do. I guess you could say that.
Okay.
So yes, I think similarly to what we were saying before, in the cases of abuse, and I think we're gonna do sometime in the near future a domestic abuse show as well.
Yes. In fact, I thought you said it was next.
I said in the near future.
In the near future. It's in
the near future.
The near future. Right.
Yeah. But just talking about abuse and the people that are suffering silently, and the reason that there may be some shame behind it, and that the church is not providing a relevant platform for them to be able to express or heal. You know. I saw a clip on Facebook where Pastor Kelly brought up this whole. You saw that clip where he was talking about how we as a church jumped on the whole women's ordination thing, right? Which could be a totally different show, because that's a little hot. But at the same time, and we're really, you know, 126-page document, because I saw it when it came out, you know, talking about women's ordination and whatnot. But then you got people like Mike Brown being shot down in the street, and we just talking about let's just pray about it, you know, as opposed to putting our efforts similarly to what we did.
We put 129 pages.
You know, really. So I think that it is important that, again, the church gets real. We have real discussions, and we actually put our money where our mouth is and start really working with the issues, giving people a safe spot where they can come and talk about abuse, where they can come and talk about addictions, where they can come and talk about those things that they don't right now want to talk about because they feel like they're being judged, and when they express it, they're punished as a result of their expression of a weakness.
Right.
And so, yes, I completely agree, Darius, and if the church isn't equipped, because I saw someone say that the church isn't equipped, but you know what? I will say this, the church as a nonprofit organization, you have resources. It doesn't have to be within your own walls to address these issues.
That's right.
There are ministries outside of the church that deal with battered women. There are ministries that deal with addictions. There are ministries that deal with sexual abuse that we can partner with. I don't know why we're so afraid to partner with people.
It's true.
True. I'm sorry. I just saw that comment. So true. We may not have the resources in-house, but we can partner with others, and that too would then be a ministry of outreach as well. Okay.
Absolutely. But let me say this. Get off your high horse for
I'm done. I'm done.
Get off your high horse for. What I mean, get off your high horse. I think again that the church is equipped.
Absolutely. I mean,
but the problem is it's still taboo. That's where we at. The subject is still taboo. I mean, you go to these. Okay, I'm going to say this. I'm going to get in a little trouble here.
Oh boy.
But we talked about at Restoration Praise Center coming up in October. Okay, October 24th. We are expressing our views or reaching out to the LGBTQL community.
LGBT.
Okay. And, I know that we're going to get a lot of flack for it because we're dealing with something that's taboo. And the reason why we're speaking about this is because we want to reach out to that community. It's a real community. There's people even in our church, even in your church, in your community, in your families that need that kind of support. I have no issue having a support group for individuals who are gay in our church. Just like we don't have enough support groups for divorcees in our church. We don't have enough of a support group for people who have been played with or sexually abused in our church. We don't talk about these things. People who have been raped in our church.
Right.
We don't talk about it because once we have found Christ,
we forget where we came from. Yes. We forget that just 2 years ago we were battling with that same thing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And in this, we become frustrated. And I want to go back to this text, okay? I want to go back to this text because I want us to stay as in the correct context. That when it says, "For it is better to marry than to burn," I want to look at that word "burn." That word "burn" has a lot to do, from the Word of God, has a lot to do with being frustrated to the point where you cannot, you're stuck. You are depressed. You are in a place where you can't even live your life. And that's what the Bible means by burn. And what the Bible is taking us to a point where individuals are reaching a place where they cannot contain. They cannot take care of themselves. They cannot hold themselves. And in that, it says, let them marry. Now, the problem with not being able to contain and marrying, if you use that verse all the way, you end up marrying someone that you're not supposed to be with.
Right.
You end up being with someone that is not God's intention for us.
Right.
And so I want to look at this text again, right? But I want to look at it from the message.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I want us to look at it from the message, all right? The Word of God says from the Message magazine, right? From the Message version. To be married, to be single. Now, getting down to the questions you asked in the first letter to me, remember now, Paul is answering from the church in Corinth. First, it is a good thing to have sexual relations.
Is it a good thing to have?
No.
It's a question.
No, it's an answer.
But there's a question mark on the thing. First, is it a good thing to have sexual relations?
Oh, my bad. I think I was talking about myself.
I'm
sorry.
You went somewhere on that.
Thank you for the question.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so let's go back first. Now, concerning the things that you wrote to me before,
right?
It is good for a man
not to touch
That's
a statement.
Right.
See?
But
okay.
But remember now, because we got to understand what the original language is saying.
Right, of course.
What they was concerned about was the question: is it good for a man to touch a woman? Okay. So
not concerning that. Okay.
Right. He's not making the statement: it is good for a man not to touch a woman.
Gotcha.
He is answering the question of the things that was concerning about a man touching a woman. Okay, good. Let's go back.
All right.
Come on, everybody. Stay with me. Everyone, stay with me. Maybe it's best right now for everyone to not chat, but listen. Let me give you some time or to read together. You want to start now?
Now, getting down to the questions you asked in your letter to me. First, is it a good thing to have sexual relations?
Okay.
Certainly. But
certainly.
That's the answer.
Okay, good.
But only within a certain context.
Okay.
It's good for a man to have a wife and for a woman to have a husband. Sexual drives are strong, but marriage is strong enough to contain them and provide for a balanced and fulfilling sexual life in a world of sexual disorder.
Come on, in a world of sexual disorder.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The marriage bed must be a place of mutuality.
Yes.
The husband seeking to satisfy his wife, the wife seeking to satisfy her husband. Marriage is not a place to stand up for your rights.
You know what that means? Don't worry about it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, if this doesn't happen, I'm doing this.
Right,
if you don't do this, I'm withholding.
Right.
That's the statement that comes by from withholding.
Okay,
okay, go ahead. Stand for your rights. You ain't got no rights.
Marriage is a decision to serve the other, whether in bed or not.
Okay.
Or out, sorry.
Same
thing.
Okay.
Abstaining from sex is permissible for a period of time if you both agree to it. And if it's for the purposes of prayer and fasting, but only for such times.
Go ahead.
Then come back together again.
Okay, Satan.
Satan has an ingenious way of tempting us when we least even expect it.
Come on.
I am not, understand, commanding these periods of abstinence, only providing my best counsel if you should choose them.
In verse 7.
Sometimes I wish everyone were single like me. A simpler life in many ways.
Simpler.
No, he didn't.
Simpler.
But celibacy is not for everyone any more than marriage is. Mm-hmm. God gives the gift of the single life to some.
Come on.
The gift of the married life to others.
Okay.
I do, though, tell the unmarried and widows that singleness might well be the best thing for them, as it has been for me. But if they can't manage their desires and emotions, they should by all means go ahead and get married. The difficulties of marriage are preferable by far to a sexually tortured life as a single.
Wow.
Jeez, a sexually tortured life as a single. How about that?
Burn. Okay.
Sexually
tortured life. I can't do that.
So essentially what he's saying is, I'm enjoying being single. You know, he has what you guys call the gift of singleness.
That's who's we guys. I'm
sorry, you and Pastor Mitchell, the other pastor of Restoration Praise Center, says says the gift of singleness, okay, which I have never really understood, but there is apparently a gift, and some people do it well.
Right, the gift is individuals who are able to manage their emotions and their sexual desires.
Okay.
For the rest of their lives.
Whew.
For the rest of their lives.
All right.
I guess what turns them on alone is just their relationship and other things other than that. Okay? And that's where the Bible also talks about people becoming eunuchs. Okay, eunuchs for the Lord, servants for the Lord. And so in light of that, the truth is that if someone is single, then they should be getting their satisfaction from serving God. Mm-hmm. Those who are married, you have more of a distraction because because your wife or your husband wants you to worship with them because it is a spiritual thing. Instead of going out into the mission field. You see where I'm coming from?
Right.
And this is where you also find a lot of pastors losing their children, losing their family because they're busy doing the work of the Lord.
Right.
Instead of doing the work of taking care of their families. So it is almost a sin to take care of everyone else and not take care of your family.
Yeah.
So if you want to be stuck on a mission field and not take care of your family, it's better that you not be married and have children. You know.
Okay.
It's better that they not. So if you feel like you cannot manage your sexuality, then it's better for you to get married.
Now, can I ask a question?
There we go.
Okay, so it's better that you get married. If you have, let me just throw a scenario out there, and I think I saw it somewhere in the chat room as well. If you have very strong sexual desires, right? Mm-hmm. And you may be, say, partaking with another individual, obviously outside of the will of God.
Outside of the will of God.
Right. But so then it's best you marry than continue having sexual relations with that person, even though that person may not be the person you're supposed to be with.
No, right context.
I'm trying to, because I saw that in the chat room and it gives that implication. And I've heard it presented that way as well. It's best you marry. Just marry. People, couples get in trouble, have a baby out of wedlock and stuff like that. Get married.
Right.
You know, that always seems to be the response.
The fix it.
Right, the fix. Get married.
Right.
So how do we then bring that into a responsible response?
Oh, boy.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
The get married or burn. You know, how do we bring that into a responsible response?
I personally feel Wow, once you get married, well, first of all, if you're with someone and you can't control yourself, you have to ask God for some self-control. Because if you don't ask God for self-control, you get married for sex sake. What happens if that person get into an accident? Oh, you understand where I'm coming from?
Right.
What happens if someone have some kind of deficiencies? What if
things happen?
It does.
Right.
And if you go into a situation like that, wow, you can't. No one is supposed to get married for sex.
Right.
If you get married for sex, you're in it for the wrong reason.
And you're gonna be disappointed because things change.
You ain't lying.
Things change.
You're not lying.
I mean people get older,
and then you figure out it's not all about that anymore.
Right.
It's icing on the cake. It is fruit inside the pudding. It's all that good stuff. But on the other end, it's still talking.
Right.
There's
a lot of companionship
absolutely
that comes with it. And it's unfortunate, and it's very unfortunate actually. I think that the beauty of marriage is a lot of times overshadowed by this topic of sex. Sex is, yes, a part of marriage.
Right.
But there's so many other things to it.
It's true.
That, I think that sometimes we just, the focus can be on.
Well, you got to remember what Roy said earlier. That, we're not really taught that.
Right.
We're not really taught that. I mean, that's the truth. We're not really taught that. We're really taught to conquer, to go for it. And in marriage, we're doing the same thing. Conquer, go for it. And if we don't, and if we're not able to conquer and go for it in marriage, then we go out of the marriage to find what we thought the expectation should have been. You see, and again, this is why we go back to the article again. When it comes to talking about sex, should the church lead the conversation? If the church led the conversation now, okay, I'm in my 40s now. If just one church decides to have this conversation, as married couples as people are getting married and having children, 20 years time, by the time I'm 60 something, and you have your 40-year-olds now, you're going to have more families that are going to be more inclined to stay together,
right,
understand each other, see what marriage is all about,
right,
than if we don't talk about it. Sex is something that should be talked about in the church, simply so that the generations to come can be open about it and understand what it's all about. I just feel like we're losing our impact on the community.
Yeah, because of it.
Because of it. Definitely because of it. We want to take some more callers. We don't have anybody. Well, we have people listening. We don't have. Okay, so the number is 3. Hey, having a chat. See, they're having a chat with me. Well, we don't have
347-989-8128. 347-989-8128 is the number. If you want to talk with us, press 1. And that will give us an indicator here in the studio that you're ready to speak. If you're just listening, because we have a few callers that are here with us. We do have someone we have a few callers that are here with us that are just listening, but we have another 646 number, last 4 digits, 6510. Welcome to BBC Unplugged with Pastor Paul and LaLa. Good evening.
Hi, this is Desiree.
Hey, Desiree.
Hey.
Yeah, so I just wanted to I know the whole transparency thing. I thought that it was really interesting because me, for myself, I've always been open about my past because I've had a promiscuous past or whatever. And on my show, I talk about it because I want people to know that God can restore anything.
Beautiful.
And I think that if you're not a virgin, I think that that's so much more reason for you to learn self-control before you marry. I'm not really sure about the whole marrying people just because you had sex with them, because especially those people were ungodly people. You don't want to marry somebody who's ungodly and now you are with God, because now you're going to be unequally yoked. So I'm not really sure about that. But I do believe that before you get married, there needs to be some level of learning how to have self-control. And that goes with, being careful of what you listen to, what you watch, the kind of people you hang out with, all those kind of things. Not enough to just say, okay, God, help me with my desires. You have to actually actively go out and do things to help you. You have to know your weaknesses. You have to know your strengths. You have to know, okay, I can't be in the, in this place with this guy at 11 o'clock in the night or whatever.
Your choices.
So you have to know yourself. Because if you don't learn those things when you're single, I believe when you get married, you're not going to automatically learn it. And that's where infidelity and all these other things come in. So I think it's important to learn these things when you're single.
Yeah.
True. Absolutely. I like some of the, I really like some of the examples you gave. I'm going to ask if you can remember like 2 or 3 of them again. How are you careful in that manner? Could you name some of them again?
For which one?
Well, let me say what you said.
Wait.
Not being somewhere with a guy that you don't need to be. Being careful what you listen to. Be careful what you're watching. Instance like that helps you when it comes to control.
And Desiree, let me ask you a question because you mentioned of your past and now you're to a place of restoration. My question for you is, did the church play a role in that restoration process?
That's a good question.
Honest answer.
No.
Okay.
I found a lot of things through YouTube and through godly counsel that I found online, and through a lot of, just being really careful about who I hang out with. But the church itself, no, I don't hear them talking about those things actually at all. So it wasn't through the church.
And so, did you reach out to the church and there was just no answer, or you just didn't receive anything based on what the church was speaking on at the time?
No, I didn't reach out to the church.
Okay.
All
right. I was curious because this is taking us back to whether or not the church is
equipped.
Is equipped to be able to address this.
So maybe the question is also, could you have turned to the church at that time? Were you able to turn to the church at that time?
You mean in my past or afterwards?
Yeah, even afterwards.
I don't know if I would be comfortable because most of the people in the church are much older, so I don't know how they would respond to that. And I also grew up in my church, so I don't know.
Okay.
I'm hearing you say nah.
Right, yeah, I'm getting a no. So it's a matter of comfort level.
Yeah.
And then
I think it gets to a point where you have to be so wrapped up in God where, you it's not that you don't care about what people think, but you're just so focused on, I need help. God will help you to get to that point where you don't hold back, because then you're hurting yourself by not getting that help.
Right. Okay. Okay, Desiree. Thank you so much for calling.
Okay.
Man.
Have a great evening. What happened? They're not talking.
But when I look at individuals who are able to say, I'm not afraid to say this, and I'm not afraid to say it because I can help someone else.
Right.
A lot of times, even in my own ministry, I've been told that I'm too transparent. If you can help someone just by being transparent, then it's the church becoming transparent. The problem is that the church is not transparent. If the leader is not transparent, then how can the church be transparent? If the people in the church are not being transparent, then no one is going to be comfortable enough to even say, I'm relying on the church, I need the church, and there's nothing there for me. So one of the things that the church needs to do, as we said before, is to be relevant, to be open, to be transparent, to create a forum, because if our generation now is too afraid to talk about it, then later on we're not going to be about it.
Right. And I would even go further to say that the issue is not your transparency. The issue is the individuals who can't handle it.
Ouch.
And so when they can't handle it, they can't handle it for the simple fact of they may not be compassionate, they may lack that humility that we talked about. So the issue isn't really the fact that you're transparent.
Right.
The issue is that they're not in a place where maybe your transparency is putting a mirror in front of them,
right,
and they're seeing where they should be or where they are. You know what I mean? But I think the transparency is something that is needed. And that's where we talked about the real conversation.
Yes.
That the church needs to have, and the atmosphere void of reputation. You know? I think that's where that comes from.
Well, remember one of the biggest problems again is that people are afraid to come into the church to talk.
Right. Because
they're afraid to have a reputation.
Right.
That's the scary thing right there. People are afraid to have the conversation.
Yeah. We have a caller. That's how I know we have less than 15 minutes left in the show. But we have a 240 area code, last 4 digits 9471. Good evening. You are with BBC Unplugged.
What's going on, family?
What's up, Ollie?
Hey.
What's going on?
What's up?
My peoples.
What's up?
It's a good conversation, man. I've been listening. I was on the road, and so I couldn't really get in the chat, but I'm kind of backtracking now in the chat.
Okay. And for those of you who don't know, this is Ali Marcel of Marriages Our Ministry. Ali and Denise came and sat with BBC Unplugged a few months ago, and they came up with this topic, sexually satisfied or thirsty. So this is Ali of Marriages Our Ministry. Thank you for calling in, Ali.
Oh, it's no problem. What's going on, everybody?
He said,
shucks.
Oh, shucks.
I definitely agree. Huh?
No, go ahead. He's teasing you. Go ahead.
I'm teasing you.
I definitely agree with the fact that the church needs to be actively involved. I think, though, that before we can expect individuals to be open and transparent with the forum, I think that we have to create, I don't want to use the word panel, but that's kind of old school, but for lack of a better phrase, a panel that will create an environment that is already transparent. So what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, there's 5 people in your church that team up. 2 of them are a married couple. One is a single person. One is somebody who struggled with pornography and was delivered. Somebody, was in an alternative lifestyle and decided to go a different way. And those individuals form a forum that they're not necessarily trying to bring it out of us for us to tell, our dirt, so to speak, but they are almost inundating us with their experiences, almost to the point where after a while you can't help but get comfortable. If you're sitting around somebody and you experience that issue, and you're listening to somebody who is passionately talking about that exact issue and the fact that they have gotten out, and you see the results of that, because this is somebody that you associate with, in your congregation. I think that over time, that may allow individuals to feel a little bit better about coming out. And even at that point, it still may not be to the whole group. It may just be to those 5 individuals. But then you created something.
It's true. It's true.
It's unfortunate that we can't think of it like this. You know how crazy it would be if you went to the hospital and you could not tell the doctor what was wrong with you, because the doctor was either gonna be like, no, you can't stay, or clown you, or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's preposterous. That sounds ridiculous, because that goes against the exact nature of what that establishment has been designed for.
Right.
And I think that's the same problem that we're having with the church. The church is supposed to heal those issues. They're supposed to be, a place where people can come to talk and to, have shoulders to lean on and shoulders to cry on and people to pray with. But we got to kind of start from the top, so to speak, or from people who are willing to get together and say, hey, okay, I had this issue. I don't have a problem. Like the young lady who was just talking, said she, talked about her past, and she's not, you know, afraid to talk about her past because she knows what that can do. We need more people like that who are willing to do that for as long as it takes until people begin to get comfortable with them. And then in becoming comfortable with them, you know, in turn become comfortable with themselves. It's a long road, but it can be done. And I mean, it has to be done. If we're going to heal as a people, if we're going to be, you know, walking in the, you know, the newness that God has for us, we're going to have to make those kind of moves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks so much for calling in, Ali. I think we have another caller that is...
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
You too. We have another caller. That caller, area code 301, last 4 digits, 3346. You are on live with BBC Unplugged.
Hey, so I guess pretty much my comment is going to touch on different points that were brought up throughout the whole discussion, but mainly a question that was asked about where do we start? And one thing that hit me was the comment that Pastor Graham made about the young lady who came to a small group of women and actually was open about her past and how no married women want her around. And it starts within small groups. And a lot of times it's not more so the person coming forth that has the issue, but the issue comes with those that should be reaching out. Because these women that are now keeping their husbands away from this woman is not doing it based off of solely what the girl confided in them, but a lot of it has to do with their own insecurities.
Exactly.
And for me personally, if you have your own insecurities that you have not yet overcome, how can you now accept someone else with their own issues? And another aspect of it is the fact that a lot of people, they don't want, women have this tendency of excluding anyone or anything that does not look like them or what they would want in a friend.
That's people in general.
And so they might see a young woman, not get to know her, but they already have all these labels, conceptions of that person without even getting to know the person. And so a young woman coming forth and saying, well, this is what I used to battle with all of their insecurities added, they're not going to want to believe that this woman has changed. They want to keep you to what they know of you, and in the meantime, looking and waiting to see where that person will slip up so that they can say, ha, that tendency never left you. It's still within you. And another thing that I feel as though is that where to start, even if there are, I think that the best place to start is the fact that as Christians, we have not only have a problem hearing people's confessions, we want to hear them only for the simple fact that we all like to hear a good, juicy story. And I feel as though a lot of times it's not the fact that the person is confiding, but it's the fact that we have our own little confessions that we're afraid to bring up. And a lot of times we are afraid of who we are or used to be. Because there are a lot of married women who did not save themselves for marriage. There are a lot of married women who actually did have reputation.
Rats!
I mean...
You know? It's more women who are more open and honest about where they came from. You know what? No, I did not save myself for marriage. And when I finally got married and we did it for the first time, it was beautiful. But do I believe that I wish that I actually saved myself for then? Yes. How did I actually move past my tendencies to actually become to one man or actually be married, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of women nowadays within the church feels as though if we don't put out, we can't get or keep a man or keep his attention, you know? So with that in mind, celibacy is really hard.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It is true.
Mm-hmm.
And on the same end, it's just like, it's just between the insecurities, not knowing that, hey, if I withhold myself, this man is not going to want me, or when's the next catch coming around. It's very emotional. And if more women came forth and said, you know what, I went through this, I dealt with this, and this is how I came through it. I overcame it, you know. More women will see the light at the end of the tunnel. More women will be able to apply what is being told to them to a biblical context and know that the same God that worked a miracle for them can work it for me.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Caller, I want to thank you so much. We have just over 3 minutes,
left.
left in the show, but I definitely want to thank you. Oh, we have a quick caller
From New York. That's
from
Ronnie,
New York.
which is Ronnie. I believe that's Ronnie.
Okay, 9867 646 area code. You have 30 seconds to talk to us. Welcome.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was pressing 1 in the chat room.
Oh.
I know you guys don't have a lot of time, so that's okay. But this is Ronnie, Rochester, and I was chatting it up with you guys. Everyone makes such great points, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can.
Hear anything.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. In regards to just everything that was stated, really the thing that stuck out to me the most was when Pastor Graham read a different context of the scripture, where it talked about singleness, and it also spoke about celibacy. And I think that everyone touched on such great points. However, I really think that there's a lot of single Christian, primarily Seventh-day Adventist men and women out there. And I guess you guys may have to revisit this again, but we're talking about premarital sex. We're talking about if you have a sexual partner, should you just marry them? And Desiree made some great points as well. Self-control is definitely a part of it, but then I'd also like to add as well that we need to have these resources. And when we say that the church is equipped, we need to be equipped with therapists. We need to be equipped with people who can kind of guide us and direct us and tell us where to go, because people are having premarital sex in the church.
It's true.
Yes. Yes. And it's not being talked about. And it's
not being talked about, and it's not even taboo.
Right.
I think that's just a cliche word to use.
Right.
People gossip about it. People talk about it. People outcast people for it. So it's not taboo. It's just something that we don't want to talk about, especially within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because we're considered a peculiar people, special people. Right. We want to keep ourselves special. We want to keep ourselves peculiar, but all we are doing is just making ourselves look like another cult.
Right.
I'm sorry to say that, but it is very true.
I mean, you're absolutely right.
So let's be different. Let's use these resources. Conversation.
Right.
Let's show people what peculiar people do for the young people. We have a generation of 20s and 30s who are having premarital sex.
Yes. Yes.
True,
yes.
true.
And I think we need to have another show, a second show on this. Ronnie,
a third?
I don't know what number we're up to on this, but I think the next one needs to talk about the resources and how we actually begin the healing and the help process.
Absolutely.
60 seconds.
Yes, and I don't know if you heard that, Ronnie, but we have 60 seconds left.
Listen, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm not saying another word.
Good,
thank you, Ronnie.
Good to hear your voice again from New York. All right, girl.
Yes.
Okay. At this point in time, we have ended our episode.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
We want to close off in this manner. We want to close off in this sense where we do believe that the church should be that entity.
Should take the lead, absolutely.
Should take the lead.
We just need to figure out how we do so responsibly and effectively. We can't just skirt the issue. We really need to have a conversation and talk about what we're not talking about.
True. And so we want to thank you for joining us on BBC Unplugged. What a subject tonight as sexually satisfied or thirsty. God has really led this conversation not only with LaLa and myself, but also with those who are online, those who are listening, those who are on Blog Talk. But we're going to ask you that you go to our page on BBC Unplugged, if you go to our page, and like the page. And as soon as the next 25 minutes, we're going to be rebroadcasting this so you can share it with others, share it with friends, and know that God is in the business of just blessing us day by day, hour by hour. And so in this, we want to thank you for joining us on BBC Unplugged. We'll see you again real soon. Share this page with someone. Share these thoughts with someone because someone needs to be edified. Be blessed today.